Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Podcasting has been an adventure for all of us. Putting together each episode, painstakingly editing and curating guests that we know that you would love has been a dream come true. But do you hear that sound? That's the sound of us rummaging around through the couch cushions, looking through last year's coat pockets and through the piggy banks, pulling out those last dimes, trying to make it work. So we need your help. If you've got some extra dollars hanging around or you're just looking to give, please go to makeitworknevada.org and click the donate button. Every little bit helps us to produce more content as well as outreach for the community. Again, makeitworknevada.org, click the donate button, and thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Way below acceptable. Way below acceptable.
On this week's episode,
Benjamin Franklin and asked him, what are you going to give us? Are you going to give us a monarchy or something else? Are we going to get a king? What are we going to get? He said a republic, if you can keep it. So a republic is a democracy. It is where the people choose their government.
Way below acceptable.
Hey there, Sticky Note Conversation listeners. This is your host, Erika Washington. And today, I want to take a moment and think about democracy. If you're an avid Sticky Note Conversation listener, then you know that I ask almost every episode, what is democracy? And do you think we have it? What is democracy? How do you define democracy? Do you think that we have democracy? I've always found it to be a very interesting question that's caused a lot of stumbles and deep thoughts, and even some times where we needed to pause so folks could really think about the question. And there's good reason why. Did a little research around democracy before today's episode, and democracy is derived from the ancient Greek words meaning people and rule. It is a form of government in which political power is vested in the people or population of the state. And I highlighted space on Wikipedia. Yes, I know Wikipedia, but I thought this made sense. That although democracy is generally understood to be defined by voting, no consensus exists on a precise definition of democracy. Karl Popper says that the classical view of democracy is, in brief, the theory that democracy is the rule of the people and that the people have the right to rule. And one study identified 2,234 adjectives used to describe democracy in the English language. It's really no wonder that my guests have had such trouble with defining and describing democracy. I started asking this question because I read and I hear all the time, we live in a democracy. America's a democracy. This country was founded on a democracy. But what does that even mean? And a democracy for who or whom? Remember when I sat down with Kwami Abdul-Bey, former candidate for Arkansas House District 69, Air Force veteran, talk show host, and university professor. This is what he had to say about democracy.
I don't really know the answer to that question because from a historical standpoint, I know what democracy is and what democracy isn't. And I think what I'm hearing you ask, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is what do we need to solve all of these problems that we're dealing with? First and foremost, we definitely need everybody on the same page when it comes to values. We need value-oriented civic engagement. And the most important thing that we all should be able to value is life, as meaningful as it can be, and also with as less trauma and as less scarcity as possible. If you look at a lot of these religions and their scriptures, they talk about an abundance. I think when you ask me what is democracy, I think it is living in abundance, and not only abundance for yourself, but abundance for everybody around you, because we're only as strong as our weakest link. And I don't mean to be cliches, but that's actually factual. And we have to pull everybody up so that we could be on a common level. So if we can all agree that we're all humans, and if we can all agree that life is a valuable asset, that time is a valuable asset for these humans, and if we can all agree that we will live in abundance instead of scarcity, I think only then we will be able to experience that concept of democracy. Do we have democracy the way that we understand it? No. The United States is not a democracy, and it has not been a democracy for a long time.
Vincent Lynn, host of the Michelle Mission, sat down with me to talk about movies, but also about democracy. What do you feel democracy is? And do you think we have democracy?
I think democracy is just what it sounds like. Everyone has a voice. I don't think we have it on a national level, but I also think that our lives can most readily be affected on the local level. I think on a national level, just systemically, you don't have democracy the way we talk about everyone having a voice. And then on a local level, unfortunately, more often than not, it seems like apathy keeps us from having that kind of democracy.
Yeah, democracy exists, but our power or ability to affect change really lies in the local, where we are. It begins with ourselves. It begins with us exercising our voice with ourselves, being true to who we are, being true to our own faults, and crookeds and straights, and straightening up where we need to. It begins with us, therefore, also extending that voice to our people, to our community, to our family, to our friends, as Black men, to our fellow brothers. There was a time when a community would raise a child, and then at some point it became, oh, don't be talking to my kid like that. And it's like, nah, because we're all the community, and we all got to watch each other's back. And if we start just on that level and build and get that muscle going, and then build it out, you'll see how much more power we'll start to exercise.
I asked Shelly Berkeley, the mayor of Las Vegas, what she thought about democracy.
That is an outstanding question, and I'm not sure that I can define it, but I know when it's in jeopardy. And I feel that some of the things that are happening right now on the federal level are jeopardizing our democracy. Being able to vote for the people that you want to elect. It's being able to enjoy the protections that we have under in our Constitution and all of our amendments, that our Bill of Rights. I mean, these are hard-fought liberties that most countries don't have. And once you give away your freedom and liberty, you don't get it back again. So it is worth fighting for and protecting, and not letting anybody take away your liberties, your freedoms, your rights as American citizens. And I think we need to be extremely careful right now, and in the next midterm election, make choices that are in our best interest as a country.
Lucy Flores, former lawyer and Nevada State Assemblywoman.
Like, we are on the precipice, if not already, by book definition, in an oligarchy. We are no longer in a democracy. And so things like that, they keep me up at night, because I realize that they're systemic, right? Like, and that if we don't change our system, if we don't come together Like if the people don't realize that it's us who have the power and not these billionaires, that we are on the precipice of devastation. It's not just the US. It's not, our democracy is certainly at risk. If people aren't afraid that our democracy could collapse, then they're not living in reality. We have so many examples, historical examples, to point to. And so like, it is not impossible that our freedoms that we are so used to having can be taken away from us in the course of the next couple of years. Like those existential threats are what keep me up at night. But the reason why they keep me up at night is because my policy brain understands what got us there. And if we don't rise up as people, and by rise up, I mean rise up, if we don't exercise out the power of our wallets, if we don't withhold as a group, I mean like as everybody, right? As humans, as Americans, like if we don't come together now in this moment and collectively stand up against these billionaires and these corporations through mass boycotts, through refusal to work in some instances. And I don't mean day of actions because I don't believe that those things are effective, but like literal widespread. When we think about the fact that the United States now has this anti-immigrant mindset, and they're like, oh, well, we only want to deport the criminals. That's not what's happening. So imagine that every single undocumented immigrant in this country is deported. It isn't even about reducing them to their labor. It's that they are an I can't think of the word. Integral part of our system, our ecosystem. It's not just about their work, like they spend money in communities. They're a part of making, we all do. We're a part of making, if they don't have us as users, as consumers, what do they have? Right. So I hope that wasn't like too big of a tangent, but like that is I hope that people recognize that is the very real threats that we are under right now as Americans.
Professor Lori Lee.
That's a really good and hard question. So, through teaching about and learning about and with Native American communities, I have learned that the United States democracy is based on the Iroquois Confederacy. And so the ideas about what that democracy should be like really came from there. And so Ben Franklin talks openly about that. And it's one of those things that gets kind of silenced more along the way. I don't think a lot of people recognize that. But Native groups tend to be more community focused and more consensus focused. And I think that's a key part of a democracy, right? So we had it enshrined in the Constitution, no taxation without representation, though apparently except in DC, right? Yes, that if you want a 51st state, DC, we got one. Let's do it. But in terms of what's happening now, I think it is an absolute attempt to erode democracy. We are absolutely going down the line of authoritarianism. When you try and ignore the courts, I mean, we saw this with Andrew Jackson, again, who is one of my least favorite presidents, another populist president, and he just ignored what the court said. And he's like, well, how are they going to make me do it? Who's going to enforce it? And we're seeing that happen again. Fortunately, we got through it that time, and I'm hopeful we'll get through it again. But I think it is a very active assault on our democracy and trying to erode the three branches that we have and the checks and balances that we have. I don't think you put people in powerful positions who are not experts at what they do, but because they're just loyal to you, without consequences to that, without a predetermined plan, that you have a goal of achieving loyalty to an authoritarian approach, right? You want people who will say yes to whatever it is you want to do. And we've seen that. We've seen JD Vance say, well, the president has power over the courts. No, that's not the case. And Congress has the power over the money. So those things were meant to be separated, because we learned as a nation, we can't trust somebody who has control of all three things. So it looks like we're going to have to learn it again. But I think we can draw on lessons from the past to help us get through. But it's painful. It's so painful to watch. It's so painful to watch and see the fallout, and particularly just the approach that's being taken, just to completely haphazardly eliminate positions and funding and not care at all about the consequences to the people. So again, anthropology, I think, will be helpful to remind us that it's humans. We're all in this together. Our category should be, what is your ethnicity? I usually will write in human, because that's what we all are, right? And we need to remember that we have so much more in common than we do differences.
Co-executive director Erika Gallegos of Child Care for Every Family.
The way that I see democracy playing out right now is everyone in the streets of LA pushing back on ICE. I think the only way that we have democracy is if people come together and fight and push back, because it is easy to lose. Our ancestors fought so hard to ensure that women could vote, that people of color could vote, and it does feel right now like that's slipping away from us day by day. But I believe that we still have it, because people are in the streets in LA fighting really hard to ensure that they're protecting their communities and their families.
Lathrop Village Mayor Kelly Garrett.
I'm embarrassed for us. I'm very embarrassed for us as Americans. It doesn't seem like we have our own free will to choose. And well, we do, but it's so much coming at us on a daily basis of what's right and what's wrong. I feel like our Constitution is just being like, we're going to start over because I don't like it. And because it's coming from the top, not God, but coming from the top of the org chart, so many of the different branches are starting to feel that same way, or are starting to act the same way. And like I said, I'm just embarrassed. It used to be where elected officials were held in such high esteem. Like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be, but now it's just almost like a clown show, almost in every jurisdiction. Freedom of speech is a double-edged sword right now. And I think that that's where we're going to have some issues at. And it frightens me. I have a friend who was like, you don't have anything in your house to protect yourself. And I'm like, why are we there? What's going on in our world where we have to feel as though we now have to be armed in our own houses because of what the world is doing? Next 5 years, I see there's a saying, it's biblical, when you build your house upon sand, it can crumble. My house is not built on sand. I know it's a strong foundation, but our administration, I won't say sand, I would say concrete, maybe, that can't dry. Yeah, that can't dry, that doesn't have the rods in it. And you see it now that it's starting to shake, and you see the cracks in it. I don't some of the things it's just, you see this, you got me tongue tied on this one because I want to say what I want to say, but it's also, I just don't feel like the 4 years is going to happen. Because it's too much. You know how you just, it's just too much that's going on. And the little tip that's going on now is like just the tip of the iceberg of what's to come, I feel.
Yeah.
And I feel as though it's going to be it's going to be an outside entity that something's is going to change. You can't keep doing these tariffs against different countries. You can't restrict travel for certain countries. Some country, something. I can like feel it. It's not. I don't feel like it's going to be good, but I feel like the right people are going to be protected. So I don't feel like it's a whole we're about to be destroyed. But I just feel we can't go on like this.
You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Hey there, Sticky Note listeners. This is your host, Erika Washington. I hope you've been enjoying all of these episodes of Sticky Note Conversations as much as I've had creating them. Creating a podcast was a longtime dream of mine, and I'm so privileged and excited to be able to do this and bring you new conversations weekly. However, Sticky Note Conversations, like any other podcast, is not free to make. It costs nearly $100,000 a year to produce both Sticky Note Conversations and American Dreams Reproductive Justice. It is my dream to continue doing this and to grow it, make it bigger, make it better, talk to more people, talk to some folks outside of the country. I want Sticky Note Conversations and American Dreams Reproductive Justice to tell the stories that you want to hear. But we need your help. If you find it in your heart to donate, please go to makeitworknevada.org and click the donate button. And here's author Dion A. Johnson.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a big question. So I do think we have it. How much of it do we have? That's a better question. You know, when they talk about the glass half empty and half full, that's how I feel about democracy for us, for Black folks. Because this thing can go either way. And it makes me a little nervous at times. You know, my grandpa told me something back in 2006. He was back watching TV with a guy named Judge Joe Brown. So he said, "Come back here. I'm going to see this." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm watching Judge Joe Brown." I said, "I know you watched that." He said, "I don't." He said, "But, you know, they ain't here clowning." I said, "Okay." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I see something happening. You can't see it, but I can." I said, "What do you mean, Pop?" He says, "We're going to go back to slavery." I said, "Oh, no. We're not going back to slavery. Oh, can't do that, Pop." He said, No. Not that kind of slavery." He said, "Modern day slavery." So what do you mean? He said, "We're moving too fast." He said, "We got too many millionaires, too many CEOs, too many presidents, too many this, too many that. We're moving too fast." He said they never thought that when they opened up the floodgates for civil rights and affirmative action, stuff like that, that we would move so fast. And he said, now they're going to start changing the laws back. Now, that was back in 2005. So I said, "Well, Bob, I don't see that happening. We moving forward." And here we are. Affirmative action's gone, you know. We're trying to change the voting rights, gerrymandering, all this kind of thing. So, but he saw it. You know, he was born in 1992. Him and Granny were born the same year. But they saw it. They saw that the way Black folks progressed and how people were getting jealous of that and envious of that. And we had that problem now. People think that, you know, certain people, like I said before, hate us or not. They don't hate us. They're more jealous of us than anything because they feel, man, we can try to burn them, kill them, lynch them, do all this kind of thing. But they said we rise, right? Great mind, John Angelo said we still rise, and that's what we do. So for me, when it comes to democracy, I think it's very important as we tell these young folks to vote. They had to vote, they had to get involved because, you know, voting does matter. You know, there's been times I was younger too, I was like, and it don't matter, but I've always voted. My voting record's pretty stellar. But I feel that the more we get them involved, the more they understand the power of voting, this will be important moving forward. the statistics of people not going out to vote, not caring about voting is a problem. When we grew up on our street, our parents voted and they took us with them to vote. So that was already ingrained in us. Not just to the big elections, right, but midterms, small elections. That's very, very important. So for me, I feel like if we're all on that boat, a lot of that stuff will get reversed. And next thing you know, we won't have voting rights. I think that's where our country's going. So we got to tighten up. Our race got to tighten up.
Ashanti Gholar, president of Emerge. How do you define democracy? What is democracy to you?
For me, democracy is freedom, fairness, opportunity, justice. It's the ability to have all of those things in your life, to not only be able to survive, but to thrive, and to be able to do it in community with other people. And I feel I graduated with a poli-sci degree from UNLV. And one of the most important classes that I took was on democratization. And after the man got elected the first time in 2016, people said, okay, Ashanti, what do you think we're really going to see under his administration? And I said, we're going to see how fragile democracy is. And that is what we are seeing. Because a huge part of making democracy work is people showing up, people being able to run for office, people having access to information and news. So for me, a big piece of democracy is people having the fairness and the ability to live a good life, but for us also to have a government that's going to work for us. We are a backsliding democracy, unfortunately. And we see that with these executive orders coming out. And I think we have to remember executive orders are not the law. That's why they're being challenged in court. But I think what is making us slide so quickly into a backsliding democracy is the people who are so quick to bend the knee and to fall in line and just want to curry favor with this president and his administration. But what is giving me hope is Senator Booker's filibuster. And, I have it on in the background, and it's the fact that right now 52,000 people are watching it on YouTube. So that is something that absolutely gives me hope. The people who are going to Wisconsin to volunteer for the Supreme Court race and the other races there, and are making it clear to Elon Musk that, we're not going to make this easy for you. You just don't get to drop hundreds of millions of dollars and buy these races. It's the young people who are really stepping up and fighting back and showing up at the town halls of elected officials and school board meetings discussing their future. Like that right there is democracy at work. And it's just going to be so crucial to us maintaining our democracy over the next few years. Like democracy is one of the hardest, governments to keep going, and you have to keep at it. It's why I tell people my work at Emerge doesn't have an end date. There's no time frame for Emerge to be done because we have to keep at it. And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier and how people were feeling after the vice president's loss, I addressed the team the day after the election. And I said, for me, her loss was just another big reminder that despite how hard all of us wake up and fight every day to make change in this country, there are people that wake up every day and fight just as hard to stop that change. So we have to keep at it. And that is what is giving me hope right now, is the people who are keeping at it.
Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford.
Interesting. Listen, I think democracy is a government for the people, by the people, that has a majority rule component, but protects the minority, right? And not only protects, but in my estimation, respects and recognizes the dignity of, frankly, not just the minority, but everybody in this country. And so I view it as a part of my job as Attorney General to defend the Constitution in a way that preserves our democratic republic that we have. And look, yes, we still have it. I do believe we have it, Erika. Is it being strained? Yes. Is it under fire? Yes. Is it being tested heavily? Absolutely. But it's like I said earlier, the rule of law still prevails, irrespective of who president is. And that's the reason why when he breaks the law, we sue. And that's the reason why when we sue, we've been winning in the lower level courts. To be sure, it might get to the Supreme Court. And it's not lost on me that it is a conservative majority of 6-3, with 3 of those conservative justices being appointed by Trump. But I remain confident in our institutions, including the courts, even if they disappoint me sometimes, to be sure, right? I don't always agree with what comes out of the Supreme Court. But as an example, I heard today that Chief Justice Roberts responded specifically to statements that the Trump administration has been making about trying to impeach a judge that tried to stop, and issued an order to stop the federal government from deporting individuals under the under an alien invasion act. My phraseology may be off a little bit. That dates back to 1790s. And Justice Roberts said, essentially, I'm paraphrasing this, impeachment is not the answer. There's an appellate process for these types of things, and that's what we should undertake. That, to me, gives me some level of confidence that certainly at the Supreme Court level, or some would say even at the Supreme Court level, these justices recognize that the rule of law still has to prevail, that extreme measures like impeaching a judge because you disagree with his or her opinion is not the approach to take, is not what our Constitution contemplates. Does that mean that impeachment papers won't be brought up? The answer is no. In fact, they have been brought up. A congressman in Texas has filed impeachment papers against that judge. Let's see if it goes anywhere in the House. But at the end of the day, statements like that from Chief Justice Roberts give me some level of confidence that our democracy remains and will remain.
Alicia Contreras, Executive Director of Cortisone, Arizona.
Democracy for me is where those people, like the people, are being heard, and those elected officials that we're engaging with are governing alongside with and for the benefit of like making folks better for folks instead of harder. Hearing from them is where democracy is for me right now. And I don't know, this is not a polished answer, Erika. I'm just feeling so like, oh. And sometimes it feels like a joke. I'm just being real. Like it's just, it feels so difficult. It is a very fragile, very, very fragile thing that we as a people, if we don't get it together, we're seeing it lost. I think that it sounds awful to say that out loud. Like, oof, that sounds really raw. I do not believe that we are in democracy right now. There's a lot of good-hearted folks that are trying, and I see that they're trying. But the realities is that there's a lot of work to do, and it is a broken system right now. We are teetering in a very dangerous line, and I think we're closer to already crossed the line, over the line. And the level of indifference that happened not only in the presidential election, on local elections, state elections, all of that is really saddening. And I think there's lots of factors that have to play with that. And I'm not here to blame anyone for any way in which they showed up, right? That's not going to help. And that's for me in my own health, not to be blaming people. Oh, you didn't show up, or you did this, or you did that. None of that. Or I could have done better, right? No. I think that is really dangerous. Like we want to be a democracy, and I think the fact that we're losing it or we're very close to have lost it is people all are starting to wake up. Like, oh shit is getting real. Everything under the sun that they cared about is being attacked and is being dismantled. And, you know, I think that we better do a good job at keeping a list of all the things that are being dismantled. And how do we put them back together? And who knows how to put them back together? Because, and, you know, things that were dismantled that we can do evaluations too. Like, but I just don't. We cannot let the perfection be the all stop, right? Because that perfectionist thing that we need, I think, is partly why we got here also. Now, what do you think? Yeah, like, what do you think about that?
Are you asking me what if do I think we have a democracy?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have someone's version of democracy. I think that we are, because I ask this question a lot. I ask this question on nearly every episode, and there are some folks who can define it very distinctly, and you have other folks who define it with a much wider breadth. And there doesn't seem to be, like, there's a dictionary definition, but it doesn't seem to fit how people see it. Democracy seems to be something that lives and breathes and grows and changes, and it depends on your view of the world and the lens that you see the world through. And so I think that for some folks, this is exactly what they think it should look like. It looks exactly how it should look. And then they keep pushing towards that. And then we have other folks who think that this is nothing like a democracy, and we want something different. And so I think until we can come up with a unified definition that we can all get behind and say, this is what we all we say that we want to live in a world of democracy, and this is what it means, then we're always going to be on the verge of violating someone's human rights, because we can't seem to agree on how to even function. So in that sense, we have it for somebody, but we don't have it for everyone, which to me is not a democracy.
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Hi, my name is Aaron Ford.
Hi, my name is Nina Nova.
Hi, I'm Lori Lee.
And you're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations
with Erika Washington.
Hey y'all, I'm Erika Washington, the host, creator, and executive producer of Sticky Note Conversations. My life, my mind, is always running way too fast. So I jot down thoughts, questions about life, wish lists, goals, all on sticky notes. One sticky note was this podcast. Over the course of my journalism and social justice journey, I've met some really amazing people, but I hated that I couldn't talk longer and really dive into their lived experiences, their views of the world, and their dreams for the future. Sticky Note Conversation is for anyone who enjoys a really good conversation.
Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington.
Deborah Porter, American expat living in Panama.
How do you define democracy?
That's a good question. And I don't know that I can really articulate what pops into mind is a sense of freedom, a sense of equality that is centered around the greater good of the people, so that we vote, we participate, and we decide collectively what's good for us. And, that's probably, way off in left field, but those are the things that pop into my head when I think about democracy.
Thinking about the description you just gave, do you think that we have democracy?
In the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not.
Do you see it in Panama, though? Are you seeing it there?
Somewhat. not as much. It's certainly not the US, but again, it's not a utopia where democracy reigns and, it's all pink rainbows. I used to tell people when I first moved, Erika, that leaving the country was not for everybody. Look, everybody can't do it, and it's not for everybody. You'll miss some certain things, and da da da. And I don't recommend it for everybody, and da da da. And now that I've been here, now that the political scene and the cultural and societal scene has changed in the U.S., I do not advocate for Black people staying in the U.S. And I get it in terms of people saying, I'm going to stay and fight, and my ancestors bled for this land, as did mine. Listen, I'm old. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area with the Black Panthers, and I grew up in that sense of revolution. So I get it. I understand it. But at this point, I feel like we would be better off getting out of the burning house, let it burn to the ground without me in it, and coming back in and building anew. That's my analogy.
I asked Amy Allison, founder of She the People, her thoughts on democracy.
I don't think there's a democracy in the U.S. anymore. And I actually don't think most Americans understand that. I mean, yeah, we should define it, but we should define it like American democracy never was a true democracy, and Black women know that. In our line of work, we already know that. I grew up people saying, slavery was this exception. The founding fathers were still these super brilliant people who believed in freedom. Oh, they owned slaves, but just ignore that. No, because from the very beginning, it's going to be 250 years next year. From the very, very beginning, American democracy has been flawed. We talked about the 14th Amendment. Reconstruction was the closest, in terms of opening up economic and political and human and civil rights for Black people. And it only lasted 10 years. And there's a reason that most of us cannot trace our ancestry to Ghana. I can only trace it to my great-grandfather because in Reconstruction, they made an attempt to have people's marriages legalized and to find lost family members who had been sold to other people, to count Black people in a census. That's the only reason I even know who my great-grandparents are, because my dad's 88. So it's not that long ago. So I don't know. We know this, and we understand that what was American democracy. Now, with the current situation, we cannot come back from that. And the form of government that we have has three co-equal branches, and they are not co-equal branches anymore. We have a Supreme Court that the majority bows to the will of Trump and has already made rulings that say they're going to protect him for all his criminal activity. We have Congress that has already, the majority said already that they will implement his will. And we have state legislative houses, by the way, like in Michigan, who are the majority of people already implement this anti-democratic, fascist government. And very soon, Congress will give its last significant vote. And we watched people of supposedly an opposition party, the Democrats, mainly not be opposition party. And the only person who stood up for Medicare, for example, Al Green out of Texas, the congressman, who walks with a cane, and he was the only one to say, don't touch Medicare, which is something that Americans fought long and hard for back in the 40s, or after the Great Depression. He was the only one. And what happened? They censured him within 24 hours, and Democrats voted to censure him. So this is how I know we have no democracy. We don't.
So what do we do
The difference now for me is that whereas I would advocate for lots and lots of people, I took on that burden on behalf of a lot of people who did not join as partners, equal partners in all this. Yeah. I felt responsible for American democracy, like on my own shoulders. And I don't have that delusion anymore. But there are a lot of things that we can do, and Black women we are starting to have a lot of conversations. I'm sure you're in conversations. A lot of the conversations we're having are kind of closed door conversations because we're figuring things out. One is that we don't want to abandon our community, and we should define community the way that feels comfortable. Like for me, we don't want to abandon the vulnerable in our society whose EBT cards and food stamps are being cut. They're talking about, eliminating huge swaths of Medicare and then Medicaid, zeroing up Medicaid in the budget, and people not being able to get health care. And all of these people losing their jobs who had federal funding, nonprofits and federal employees, that hits a lot of people who are now more and more vulnerable. So we don't want to abandon them. And so I'm getting a lot of my inspiration from people who are talking about building mutual aid networks. There's a lot to that, but basically creating circles of trust in which you share resources in an informal way, mutual aid networks. And I'm hearing a lot of people do that. I'm involved with, I don't know if you heard about State of the People. There was a 24-hour broadcast that we did. We started midnight before Trump's joint session address all the way to midnight that night with Black commentators, experts, organizers, that kind of thing. We did programming for 24 hours. And we have to create our own ways of communicating and understanding this moment that cannot be taken from us, like as a platform or, and all these people who have, their own platforms built up. Like I'm seeing a lot of people come together for that. That's been my particular role, is providing commentary, working with reporters. But right now, Washington Post is owned by Bezos, and they've been told not to, you know what I mean? Like they're not talking about issues in the way that we need them. I think we're going to build a parallel. And then I think there's going to be a lot of other kinds of organizing. It won't look like the civil rights struggle of the 60s. It won't look like the 30s. It won't look like just Reconstruction. It's going to look like something else. And I'm still learning, and I'm like looking at the youngest generation, like our kids' age, and like I'm looking for the heroes also of the younger folks who have gone through, this is their second Trump term. They've gone through economic hardship. They've gone through COVID. They're not built like us, okay? And they have a lot to offer. And their leadership, I'm looking for right now too. What are their ideas? And I just think we stay connected and stay in conversation.
Assemblywoman Shandra Summers Armstrong.
Well, I could go to the thesaurus and give you, or the dictionary and give you a explanation. But I think what you're asking me is what Shandra believes democracy represents. And my view could be inaccurate if you compare it to Webster's dictionary. But to me, democracy means that I have every opportunity and every right to live peacefully and to live free in this country. That whatever I dream or my children dream, that the opportunity should be available for them to achieve it. And that there should be no force, whether that force is out in front, in your face, or if it's some silent evil that is working to hinder me or my family from reaching their goal, the things that mean so much to them. We know we have to work. That's a given. We know we're going to have to do the work to get where we want to go. But no one should be in the way. No one should be devising some plan to stop us. And that's the democracy I want, to be able to vote without fear, to drive without fear, to go to the mall without fear, to be in my community without fear.
So do we have democracy?
From the explanation that I just gave you, not complete. It's incomplete. The vestiges, the framework is absolutely there. The application, maybe not so much.
So are we missing the resources or the folks with the right knowledge to build? If we have the framework, if we have, and I'm envisioning a house, if we have the frame and we have the foundation here, but in all these generations, we haven't been able to fully build the house that would shelter us all and keep us safe in all those aspects that you mentioned. What are we missing out of our toolbox?
It's not the toolbox. It's the supply. You have a house. You need stucco on the outside to protect that house from the weather. If I can buy chicken wire, but somebody is holding back on the concrete, I don't have stucco. If I need cabinets and I can buy the knobs, but no one will sell me a door, or I'm given a substandard cabinet doors, and those cabinet doors have formaldehyde in them, or they have asbestos in them, and they've been given to me, then what are you doing? You can finish the house, but you're making everybody in the house sick with these things. And so we, again, have the framework, but we often have segments of power that just don't want to let go of the supplies that we need to put in. We want people to have an education. We want our children to be educated, or so we say. But what child can learn if their housing is insecure? Just had this conversation at my principal's roundtable, where we are seeing unbelievable numbers of children still being expelled, and the number of girls rising, Black girls who are expelled rising. Now we have another group going to the school to prison pipeline. And when we talked about it, one of the things that was discussed was, why are these kids so angry? Well, if you got a green hefty bag at the front door and you're taking your underwear and your clothes in and out of it every day because you don't know if this is where you're going to live, if this is where you're going to be able to stay, how in the hell do you think that kid is going to be happy in school? You know that kid got an attitude. They're just waiting for somebody to say something so that they can blow up and blow off all this anger and frustration because they are housing insecure or they don't have food. We ain't talking about fancy clothes. We're just talking about the actual basics. Again, the framework, but the stuff on the inside. You have a school building. You're saying this is a place where children can go get educated. But if that child has no home, if they are hungry, we cannot expect that that child is going to learn. So, That's a pretty deep question. I've been lucky and blessed to be able to have had really good opportunity. But I know that I am an exception and just absolutely blessed beyond measure. And I know this because when I go out and knock on doors and talk to my neighbors and talk to constituents, I can see that I'm blessed and that what I've been able to experience is not necessarily available for all. So we have the hope, but it's incomplete.
Dr. Cheryl Neely, author of No Human Involved.
My definition of democracy is the right of the people to elect their congressional representatives to run this country, to have a voice in the way this country is run. That is what a democracy should be. And people who are citizens of this country, regardless of race, class, sexuality, gender, should have that right to choose the government that rules over them.
And do you think we have democracy in America?
Absolutely not. And we didn't have it when we wrote it up in 1776, when the woman asked outside of Independence Hall, when they were in there working on this, and this plan for this new government, and a woman confronted Benjamin Franklin and asked him, what are you going to give us? Are you going to give us a monarchy or something else? Are we going to get a king? What are we going to get? He said a republic, if you can keep it. So a republic is a democracy. It is where the people choose their government. He said, but if you can keep it, because he wasn't quite sure that it could be kept. But at that time, we didn't get the right to vote. When the 15th Amendment was passed, which gave Black men the right to vote because women hadn't gotten the right to vote until the 19th Amendment, Black men were held back through Jim Crow segregation and the sabotage of Reconstruction. And even when white women got the right to vote in 1920, Black women were held back. And then we had the Voting Rights Act of 1964. And ever since that act was passed, the conservatives in this country have fought tooth and nail to roll back voting rights for Black people because Black people were supporting more liberal, progressive parties. So when the Southern Democrats fled to the Republican Party, then the Republican Party was no longer the party of Lincoln. And Black people began to support the Democratic Party. So the fact that Black people, when they vote in large numbers for the Democrats, the only way to keep the Democrats from winning is to suppress the Black vote. So we've never fully had a democracy. Absolutely not. We've had one on paper, but not in principle.
I love the way Isabel Wilkerson describes the United States in her book, Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. She articulates that Americans have inherited a big old house that was built on a flawed foundation, and ignoring the stress cracks and bowed walls leads to danger. The structure is disintegrating in certain areas, and even if we weren't the ones to build it or skimp on the quality materials, it is our collective responsibility to fix it. We have to collectively work together to repair what's broken and to build up the ideals we need to thrive. Democracy is taking care of and improving upon the house we've inherited. And if democracy is political power that's vested in the people, the question that begs an answer is, do the people know they have the power? And can it be used to build our version of the American dream? This is Sticky Note Conversations, and I am Erika Washington. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did.
Thanks for listening to Sticky Note Conversations with Erika Washington. Hosted and executively produced by Erika Washington, with editing by Black Gypsy LLC and Simone Endres. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5 in Las Vegas. This show is powered by Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy.
And a special thank you to Grove GT Teague and Eno Savad, who made our new theme song, Way Below Acceptable.